4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go, year 2 of Alvernia University Golden Wolves football from the Wolves Den on campus here at Alvernia University, ready to roll alongside my partner and Philadelphia Soul defensive backs and special teams coach, Bernie Nowotarski. I'm Matt Murphy. This is the Alvernia Football Coaches Show with head coach Ralph Clark on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network. It is fall. It is September on the calendar. It's good to be back, gentlemen, and we've got some catching up to do, and I think we're going to jump right in. This hour we'll do a little bit of everything, Coach. We'll look back at last season. We'll preview tonight's game against Gallaudet University. The Bison looking to beat them for the second straight year. The Gallaudet Bison will go to D.C. this year, and we'll do a little bit of everything else in between. Maybe talk to some members of your staff, and then eventually we'll get to some players throughout the season. We'll have them on to learn a little bit more about this 2019-2020 Alvernia Golden Wolves football roster. But let's catch up, guys. It's been a little while since we've all been together, so let's start with Bernie, and then we'll get to Coach's off-season a little more in depth. Bernie, it's good to be back for year 2 of the program. We'll be back in the booth for year 2, and a lot to build off of last year. We grew with the team as it went on last season, and we had a lot of fun calling the games, and we learned a lot about these players and looking forward to more this fall in 2019.
I agree. There are definitely a lot of bright spots in the offense, in the defense, and in the special teams, and I'm sure Coach has probably filled in some of the spots that he needed in those areas that needed some help, and I expect to see a much improved team.
So we talked a lot last year about, we'll get into some further details about the X's and O's and all of that type of stuff, but while we're on the topic of offseason, we'll hear about Coach's offseason and training camp for the Golden Wolves shortly. But how about yourself? I know you're not super free during the offseason with the Soul and all of that, but it's good to be back as college football, NFL football, high school for that matter. I know that's for you personally, that's something you keep an eye on with your kids. It's good to have college football and high school football and NFL football back this fall. So what are you looking forward to most this season?
Well, I've been watching my son play the last 2 Friday nights, which has been exciting, starting as a wide receiver and a defensive back as a junior. And so it's exciting to watch him. Thrilled to death to watch Jalen Hurts take care of Oklahoma on the other night. I'm a big OU fan. 3 of my nieces went there on full athletic scholarships, so I've always been an Oklahoma fan. NFL I'll watch at some point, when I have some time. My grandson is playing on Saturdays, and my youngest son plays on Sundays, so I'll get to the NFL when I have time.
So there's a little glimpse into the Alvernia football color analyst, Bernie Nowotarski. Got to get a little background on Bernie before we get into this season, learn a little bit more about him up in the booth, but I think it's about that time to bring in Coach Clark for the first time before the 2019-20 season. Coach, we appreciate it, as always, you joining us on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network. So before we jump into the offseason and some of the highlights of the offseason for yourself, we want to say congratulations from us here at Jacob Media to you and Lisa on the birth of baby Hendrix back in February. That had to be highlight number 1 of the offseason for yourself.
Well, yeah, a highlight if you consider like not sleeping a highlight. Yeah, that was great. But that's the final addition to the Clark household. So yes, that was great. And he actually had his 6-month checkup today. He is 28.5 inches and 19 pounds. So he's a big boy, and he'll be the tallest person in the Clark household at some point.
There you go. I'm sure these players appreciate all the time you give them with everything you got going on at home, but you get it done. So that's why we have you here. And let's jump into the football offseason a little bit before we change gears throughout this hour leading up to kickoff. Alvernia against Gallaudet, the first game of the 2019 season, year 2 of the Alvernia program. I heard you on the radio recently doing a little spot on about the team and about the offseason. So what was the offseason like for you guys?
It was a lot of organization, restructuring, with whether it was within the staff or players, and moving positions around, just trying to make us a better program all the way around. Obviously, we did a lot of recruiting, and that's one of the things that, before I was a head coach, I prided myself on, and then I try to hire coaches that are passionate about recruiting, and I think we did a great job of bringing some young talent in here. I think we did a really good job of developing the talent that we do have. And that was our off season, just staying in touch with our players, players. We try to call our guys once a week and have a one-on-one phone conversation with them every week during the summer, starting with when our kids leave here in early May or late April, and we keep contact all the way to report that. I know some of our kids can't stand talking on the phone, but we make them. And then, I kept in contact with some of the other guys through text message and on different conversations and things I felt like we needed to develop within our program over the summer. And I think we did a great job of that, and it shows in our returners. I think we have some good leadership, some great leadership within our locker room, and anxious to see what's going on with that. And then, my promise to myself, I made a promise to myself I was going to play more golf this summer, so I played about 5 or 6 rounds of golf. So
how'd that go?
Better than I thought, man. I'm used to playing like 1 round a summer, and I played 6 rounds, and I didn't shoot 100. I didn't get into triple digits not one time, so that was good.
Just a standard right-handed golf swing for you?
Standard? I don't know how standard it is with my knees and my back these days, but yeah, I'm a right-handed golfer. I can swing it a little bit.
Sure.
You know what? I hit my driver a ton this summer, and that I never even pulled that out the bag. So I finally learned how to hit that straight, so that was good.
We were discussing golf before we went on air.
Yeah,
we'll have to get out sometime. I'm a golfer myself.
I get to play Jaworski's courses.
Yeah,
all year.
he's got the hookup, so I'm trying to just ride along, tag along with him. I hinted at the fact that Sunday's an off day for us, so
I'm in. Sign me up. I just invited myself.
That out there.
Bernie, I'm sure you can relate to not only the golf, but also an off season for a coach, particularly that first off season, I guess, from year 1 to year 2. Maybe not directly to a college program in its first inaugural season, I should say, but just that off season, year 1 to year 2 for Coach Clark, and everything you got to get done, and there's plenty of it to get done.
The one thing I noticed right away on the on the roster, there's 26 sophomores. And last year, those basically were all FRs. It's good to see some sophomores. I see a junior. So he's got some experience coming back that certainly is going to help the young guys that are here as freshmen, but it's good to see sophomores. I think we're going to see a completely different look.
And 2 seniors. 2 seniors.
There you go.
2 seniors.
Everybody see it.
Yeah.
And Coach, with training camp specifically in mind as part of the offseason, what were you hoping to get out of this year's training camp?
Just development. I wanted to see how much we had developed mentally. Everybody talks about the physical aspect of football, but 90% of this game is mental. And if you're not in the right mental space, it's going to be hard for you to come out and compete and perform on a Saturday afternoon against grown men. And not forgetting the fact that you talk about sophomore, but most other programs you see junior, senior, redshirt senior, graduate on there. So, it's not lost on us that, we're playing against 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds, and, hey, you're 18 or 19. So I just wanted to see the mental development, obviously the physical development as well, as some kids came back, and we made note of some kids before we were on air, and I know we'll get to that later, but it was nice to see, some of our 150-pound kids come in at 180 pounds and whatnot. So the physical development, mental development was huge.
And this is for both of you guys with your coaching backgrounds, and Coach, you currently being the head coach here, obviously. How would you kind of strike that balance between development on the field versus overall development, whether it's in the weight room, in the classroom, all of that? So how do you kind of approach that balance versus on-field performance and kind of encompassing everything else?
I think it starts with program, your design, your focus. What are you trying to? What is your program about? And we have, and I know if anybody's on social media, and I got to be honest, I'm not on social media that much, but we talk about our 3 Ps, passion, pursuit, process, and just we focus on those things. We talk about our pyramid every day on our practice plan. There's something from our pyramid on there. That's call it the winning edge, and what gives us the winning edge. And this week we've talked about cooperative learning and what does cooperative learning mean. And hopefully if you ask one of our guys, they'll have a definition, and it might not be verbatim, but it's going to be, you're going to hear something similar come out of their mouth. So, it's about program development. I think that's what you're looking at in program vision.
So speaking of 3P, that's one of the hashtags for the program on social media. You said what it was, but if you don't mind, maybe delve a little further with 3P or maybe where it came from.
I think if you spend enough time in this profession, you've got notes and books. I mean, these guys keep digital stuff, but I still have, if you go in my office, I got notebooks. These kids will make fun of me because I got VHS tapes and stuff like that, but I've kept everything over 23 years, and you look back and you wonder what do you want your program to be. But I think in year 2, and I said this to the team at our end of the year function last year, I had to step back and really think, hey, what are you about as a person? What matters to you? And that was it. Passion, pursuit, and process. What are you passionate about? Well, you got to be passionate about everything that you do. Pursuit. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up to get whatever it is that you say that you want? And then process, understanding that it's a process. You're not the same person tomorrow that you are today. Making sure that next 3 years, you're not the same person you are today. That you're constantly developing, whether it's academically, socially, athletically, whatever it is. So that's in a nutshell. If I'm breaking it down in a really short time span, that's what our 3P process is all about.
We'll talk shortly a little bit more in detail about last season and things to build off of, concrete things to build off of. But Bernie, I think one thing we were impressed with last season as we get closer to a break is the culture that Coach is speaking of, and the foundation of that culture that was built last year. We got to see it firsthand every Saturday.
Yeah, and that comes from what Coach just said, setting up what your program is about, the type of player that you want. I'm sure Coach has probably not recruited a player that's a better athlete than what he has in a position, but he didn't fit the personality of what he wants his players to be. We've done the same thing. We've left all-stars go because they don't fit the structure of the program. And we don't want players with a lot of baggage and that they bring that baggage with, and you've got a cancer in the locker room and it spreads. And it starts with coaching and any coach. It's your program setup. You want players that fit your style.
And we'll take a look back at some of those players and last year, the concrete things to build off of here with the Alvernia football program. Heading into year 2, this is the Alvernia Football Coaches Show with head coach Ralph Clark on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network.
Okay, good job, everybody. Nice job on that opening segment. Note to Bobby back at the station, 12:30 on that opening segment. Matt, we'll be ready to go in less than a minute.
A couple of minutes to be in.
Coach, we're on a schedule.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm all about the schedule.
Yeah. E, everything good on your side, right? Was War, everything good? I wasn't going to go through that. That's fine. Yeah, that's all right. Doesn't matter.
Hey, you guys go get your friends. Just bring it. I look at you guys every day.
You're 30, Matt. Back in 30. You have 10 in the segment, okay? Matt, 10 minutes. Guys, I don't want to say that going into the break, that was weak, but that was weak. Can we bring it up coming out of the break, please?
What is this?
All right, going to go in 15. Bern, you're good, right?
Yes, sir.
Coach, you're good, right?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
I'm looking up his golf course that's closest.
Matt, stand by. Going to go in 5. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Back here on the Alvernia Football Coaches Show with head coach Ralph Clark on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network. Bernie Nowotarski, my partner. I'm Matt Murphy, joined by Alvernia head football coach Ralph Clark. Looking ahead to tonight's opener against Gallaudet, the Alvernia football program heading into year 2, and we'll have all the coverage throughout the year right here on Sports Radio 1240. Coach, let's talk about the inaugural season a little bit. We will look ahead to this season in just a little bit, as well as hear from some players throughout the season on our shows and at halftime of certain games. But let's talk about the inaugural season. It was a season of firsts all the way across the board, and it started with a win over Gallaudet. So let's start with that, and hopefully the program can build off of that heading into this year. But you spoke in spoken at length about that many times, the feelings that you felt, but reiterate for those who haven't heard the emotions that game, what you can put into words, what you were feeling that day. The goal line stand, a 26-21 win over Gallaudet for the first win in program history.
Let me start with, I hope you guys got a different intro this year. Like, we don't need to hear me be emotional.
It was Coach's post-game interview from the field last year, right after the win, and we aired it throughout the season before every game, actually before every coach's show, actually.
Yeah, well, let's start with that. Let's get a new intro. But anyway.
That was good.
Yeah,
emotion in your voice.
I got you. But, just speaking on that emotion, it takes a lot. I talk a lot about when I first got here, they kind of sat me in a room, and I do mean a room with a table, popped the computer in front of me and said, here you go, and everybody walked out. And here I was as a head coach just in a room by myself. Trying to figure out where do you start. So a lot of the emotion that you heard at the end of the game was just, a lot of the hard work and lost sleep that goes into building a program. And I think you only know if you've actually started a program from ground zero. If you never had that experience, you can't appreciate it by any means, because you think it's easier, you think it's football, but there's so much more that goes into it. So as far as that game, there was ups and downs. The biggest thing that I was thinking about going into the game is, did we do enough to prepare our kids? Did we do enough to get them ready to play? And obviously, being down 14-0 early, you're like, okay, well, there's one or two ways this can go. We're going to see if we're a resilient bunch, or we're going to see if we're still kids. And I know for a fact in that game we saw a lot of young boys become men, and guys step up to the plate and make plays. Starting with the first drive. I can't remember if it was the run or the catch. First we scored first, but having the touchdown catch on the RPO to the boundary, it was one of the things that we had prepared for. And hey, we had a great game plan for that. And then Malcolm busting out the couple touchdowns later. It made me feel good about our running game, and that was going to be a telltale later on in the season. And then the battling back and forth and making big plays, playing against an offense like that. And Tamel Benton is probably one of the best athletes our kids will see ever in their college career. We'll get to that
as we preview the game.
And to be able to he got his plays and everything, but at the end when it counted, to be able to bottle him up and confuse their reads a little bit. And if anybody doesn't remember the sequence there of them calling the timeout and then coming out and then me calling the timeout and saying that, and then that goal line stand, it was just it takes a lot when it's Tamel broke that big run, and we get a tackle at the 3-yard line, and it's first and goal from the 3, and you got 9 feet behind you till they get in the end zone. So that was huge. And then just seeing the kids just step up to the plate and play, right, and believe in themselves and believe in the system. And I'll tell you one thing: there was not a doubt in the world. There wasn't one person in the huddle that was afraid at that goal line stand for the kids. From the kids' standpoint, my nerves were shot, but from the kids' standpoint, there was no nerves at all. And then to come out and to have that final play was that was icing on the cake. And I think you could have written a better story if it was written for a movie.
Right. And when you talk about the first, just to go back to what you referenced in that answer, the first touchdowns, I believe it was the run and then the pass. Not that it matters, but pretty cool to have those accolades, or milestones rather, in that first game. And then most importantly, the biggest milestone, the win. Bernie, you were not in the booth with me for that game. Coach and I were there, so I don't know if we want to point any fingers here, but you heard the whole rundown from Coach Clark right there. A goal line stand to preserve the first win in program history in the first game. The atmosphere was unbelievable at the stadium. It was a sellout. Behind the end zone where the goal line stand took place was packed. It was loud, towels waving, everything. What a way to get the first win last season with a goal line stand after a Malcolm Carey touchdown run.
And I missed it. I think Joe and I were still negotiating my contract. No, I actually...
it doesn't get any much better than that.
No, my son had a previous game set up, and till we got everything arranged, it just didn't work out that I could make that first game. But listening to his intro after that and getting everything taken care of, I mean, it was a great win for the program. And you can't write a better script than to win your first game of a startup system.
I mentioned Malcolm Carey's touchdown to take that 26-21 lead. Went for over 1,000 yards. He's here tonight with the squad, obviously leading up to tonight's game. Over 1,000 yards in the season, all MAC performer. What can you say that hasn't already been said about his performance last year? We will talk later about his offseason and things you're excited about, because I know there's plenty to talk about there with his development, just like the development for a lot of these players on the 2019-20 squad. But how about last season for Malcolm? You said your philosophy, you learned a lot in that first game, and you rode it that way with the running game for most of the season.
Well, you talk about his season last season, I just say tip of the iceberg. I've mentioned it before when people ask me, and I say, Malcolm last year was raw. This year he's bigger, faster, stronger, more focused. We talk about the mental aspect of the game. He's a different person mentally this year than he was last year. So I'm looking forward to, you understand we have 3 years with him. So, we have 3 years. He's going to stay for three more years. But, just understanding that was the tip of the iceberg. He was a freshman last year, and people don't understand, as a freshman, he led this conference in rushing pretty much from start to finish. I know there's another team up north that we won't talk about.
That was also behind a very young line as well.
Exactly, and that's what I say, tip of the iceberg. I think we're going to be better up front this year. We're definitely more athletic, and so I'm looking for the next few years for Malcolm and other guys that we have in the backfield as well. So tip of the iceberg for Malcolm.
Bernie, we talked about it the last game of the year, actually, at the University of New England. It was a cold one. They sent us outside the press box that day. We didn't run into any bears, but it was really cold and windy that day. And Malcolm, that's when he went over 1,000 yards. So from what you saw as the season went along last year, an incredible season at the running back position. And you talked about what the future might hold at that position as well.
Well, as a freshman, he set his bar pretty high. You certainly want to build on that. And like I did say earlier, a really young line. And we talked about it every week. There were bright spots every game where all of a sudden the line kicked in and holes were opening up. He'd hit a hole, and he was outrunning the second level and getting into the third level. And this year I'd expect the same things. Seeing him hit the hole quick. The guys that are back on the line creating more holes and letting the offense create more things that can happen. I always try and work the positive in with the negatives that I see, and that running game was such a bright spot that in most coaches, you want to establish a running game so that you can have a passing game. The passing game was struggling, and the run game then was hurt because they put everybody in the box, and he still was gaining yards, and the line was still creating holes. So if you can get a good combination of pass with the run to open that up, the kid could be looking at a 1,400-yard season.
Well, there you have it, a little bow on last season. Coach, I've heard you say calm in the face of adversity. Plenty to build off of as we look to the 2019-20 season and the 2019-20 roster. We'll delve more into that on the other side. This is the Alvernia Football Coaches Show with head coach Ralph Clark on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network.
Nice job. Note to Bobby back at the station, 10:45, Bobby, on that segment. Going to sit for re-rack here for a minute, so give us 90 seconds. We'll be back up.
Okay, we're good so far? I think we should do a little bit of season preview now and then bring anybody else, like any coaches, other coaches on, just because we don't want to run coaches preview interview like right into the start of the game right after.
You're running the show.
Let's do that now. So we'll just talk about off-season development, like this year's roster, this game, all that type of stuff. Yeah. Guys, if you hear me referencing like tonight's game, it's because this is like the pregame show, so I don't want anyone to think I actually thought the game was tonight, but there you go.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Let me know when you're ready. Bern, you're good, right?
Perfect.
By the way, Bernie did miss that opening game because we were still negotiating his contract.
He was giving away all the secrets.
I didn't know if I wanted to sit aside Matt.
That's it. All right, let's go in 45, Matt. Of 12. Of a 12-minute segment. All right.
Is Honey Run in York?
It could be. I don't know much of York.
Downingtown is definitely the one.
Okay.
Downingtown Country Club.
Coach, the goal line stand is the opening audio drop this year. Is that okay? Or
There we go. I'm just saying.
Right.
Nobody
That's
needs
me
to hear
this
me
time.
be emotional.
That's me.
That's you? There we go. Nobody needs to hear an emotional coach.
All right, good stuff. The world loved it. I'm sorry you didn't. Matt, we're going to go in 15. Bernie, you're good, right? Coach, you're good? Guys, everybody ready? Guys, everybody ready? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So are we bringing them up first, or is it welcome back and then the crowd?
You just go on my fly, all right, brother? I'll bring them in when I feel the need. All right?
There you go.
All right.
You do you. You do your job.
Yeah. All right, here we go, Bobby. Back. Big E, you ready? All right, let's go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Matt Murphy and Bernie Nowotarski welcoming you back to the Alvernia Football Coaches Show with head coach Ralph Clark on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network. We're on campus looking ahead. Well, we're leading up to tonight's game against Gallaudet with Coach Clark, and we put a little bow on last season. Now let's talk about the 2019-2020 roster a little bit and this game and the season as a whole. You talked about development. That must have been a big thing this off-season. And what were you hoping to get in terms of development, and what have you seen as the end result? I know we touched on it a little bit, but how are you feeling heading into the season now that it's here?
Well, I'll kind of address that in order. What were we looking to get out of development? Obviously, when you're dealing with freshmen, you want to get bigger, faster, stronger, more explosive. So, when we headed into the offseason, it was about hitting the weight room, getting in shape, getting in condition, getting our kids to understand nutrition and how they needed to take care of their bodies, how they needed to prepare their bodies. And we developed our offseason program based around that. And then, as preparing and developing, that goes into recruiting, and we wanted to shore up the quarterback spot. So we had some additions there. We wanted to make sure we were more athletic up front. So we got some more athletic O linemen or what have you. And then in the defensive backfield, we wanted to get longer and stronger. And I think we definitely brought some height, and we got a lot of athleticism back there. And so those are the things that we were looking to do right off the bat. And I think for the most part, we took care of all the things that we needed to as best we could, and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. And again, the mental focus of our kids, we're still working on it, and I think that's always going to be a work in progress. But we wanted to tax them physically and tax them mentally. We talk about mental toughness. To last the season and to play college football, you got to be mentally strong, mentally tough, and prepared. And like we talk about, calm in the face of adversity all the time. So wanted to tax them there, and they've had a lot of adversity. So I think our guys are ready to go for this season. I definitely think we're ready to go for tonight, and I'm excited. We're excited too, and we teased Malcolm Carey and what you saw out of him this offseason in the weight room, and you've talked about it this offseason as well. What is that? What have you seen from him, and how is his game different this season? Well, first of all, I'll talk about the physical. Malcolm likes to show off his legs, right now, and so he's got like little tree trunks right now, and he didn't have that's something that he didn't have last year. I think he came into camp around 215, and Malcolm's about 6 foot, so he's bigger, he's more stout. He's built to carry the load, I think. So those are the things that physical things that you see when you look at him. You're like, wow, he's developed physically. And then and I've been pretty open about this, about his mental development. And the way that we handle things, and we handle adversity, and the way that you become a leader based off of your performance and how you handle those leadership roles. And it's up to you on the type of leader that you want to become. And I talked to the team, and I know I've talked to him about, when you're a leader, you have to think about, are my actions worth following? And so I definitely think he's taken that to heart over the summer and over the off season. So it's been pretty good.
And before we get into some other individual players who stood out during camp that you've talked about this offseason, how about position groups? What areas were you looking at, and what areas do you want to talk about right now?
What do you want to talk about? Because I'm interested to see,
in terms of just positions, not even individuals yet.
If we're talking about fall camp, the competition at the quarterback position has been heated, and there's been ups and downs, and I was very interested in that. It's been, and we'll talk about our starting lineup and our two deep later, but I was very pleased at the competition we had at the quarterback spot. We talked about our shortcomings last year as an offense. I think we have some pretty good skill players on the perimeter, and it's nice to have quarterbacks back there, more than one, more than two, probably more than three or four that can deliver the ball to our skill guys on the perimeter and help Malcolm out. You guys talk about Malcolm being a great running back or what have you, but that comes with drawing attention to yourself and loading the box. So it's nice to feel like we have some guys that can stretch it out if need be, and to lighten the load on Malcolm a little bit. So I've been looking forward to that. I've been looking forward to the DBs. Like I said, we got longer. Guys that you saw last season at the end of the season, like Ty Morris. I still call him Sticks because he's still skinny as ever. But he likes to say he's 170 pounds now, like he's a big man. But when you know that where he came from, that's a huge jump. But he's also 6'1", pushing 6'2". We've got some freshman corners that are 6'1", 6'2", and a little bit taller. So the length and the athleticism there, it's great to see that on the back end stuff. And then the competitive nature of those young DBs too it's been great.
Right, and I want to get further into some of those individuals that you've been talking about in just a second. But Bernie, speaking of position groups, obviously defensive backs and special teams and everything like that is your focus now, and you used to play defensive back yourself. So talk about development just over the course of 1 year, or how much experience means in a secondary, if we want to get that specific.
The experience is definitely huge, and then it's also a matter of what they do in the off season with watching film and making those things that they did a little bit wrong and correcting them and getting better at the fundamentals. If it's any consolation to coach, my freshman year I went in at about 5'9", 158. Came out of my freshman year at 6 foot 220, and went from 4'5" to 4'3".
Right.
So you guys that are 170 and waiting to grow, it took me till the start of my sophomore year till it happened. Right. I woke up one day and went, what is this stuff? And it was hair starting to come out at places that I wasn't used to, and I just was a late bloomer. So for freshmen coming in, they'll learn as they go. Sophomores that are here now have a year under their belt, better technique, better mental. DB's got to play the mental game, and that takes place in the film room. If they're not willing outside of practice, outside of school, my DBs meet every night, whether on their own. They're all on their cell phone, and they rewatch practice and who we're playing literally every night. A DB, to me, defensive guys have got to be film rats.
Absolutely.
For those who don't know, Bernie is a former All-American at Kutztown, football and track and field, and played in the NFL, Seahawks, Lions. I'm not missing anybody, am I? There you go. So there's a little bit more about our analyst, Bernie Nowotarski. And Coach, who are some of the individuals that you've talked about this offseason as guys that you and the coaching staff have seen kind of stand out?
Well, there's Kevin Washington, who's one of our quarterbacks in here. Matt Monteverdi, who's another quarterback. Darius Sample. I talked a lot about that quarterback position, and that's just three names. And then a young guy coming in, Ethan DiBerdino, is a really good young quarterback prospect coming through the ranks. Jared Montalto, his development, when we talk about development, he's another smaller guy who came in probably about 180, 185 coming into camp, and he was probably 150-something, 160 last year. Jordan Green Henson is another, DB. He's somewhat local kid who came in and was kind of small and underdeveloped, and then really took to the weight program or what have you, and he's going to start for us at corner tonight. He's about 180, 185 pounds right now. I mentioned Ty Morris, just developed you talk about mental development and him understanding the game. That's been great. Tyler Strunk is back. And I know you guys didn't get to see him last year, but he's our starting strong safety. The mental aspect of the game, and we missed him last year. Just his maturity. He's a little bit older, and we're excited to actually see him get to play this season. And I'll tell you, pound for pound, I don't think you're going to find a stronger guy than Tyler Strunk. He's a 400-pound bench guy. He's a 300-pound clean guy. Like, it's ridiculous to see him work out, and then what he can do on the field and the space that he can cover. And he's a local guy out of Berks County. So really liking that. And then up front, just looking at the change that we have up front on our offensive line and the athleticism, and getting Isaiah McCready back off an injury from last year. Isaiah is a big 6'2" and some change, 300+ pound athletic offensive tackle. When you look at Isaiah's calves, they're big balls. They're bigger than most people's thighs. So, I mean, just having that type of strength and athleticism and looking at their development and physicality that we're going to have, I mean, it makes me excited.
Coach, what are you expecting? We don't have a ton of time, but from tonight's game, we talked about what it was like last year against Gallaudet. They have some guys back starting at the quarterback position, so we're not going to dwell on tonight's matchup. We have plenty of time to talk about that, Bernie and I, leading up to the kickoff and everything like that, and during the game and throughout the season there'll be things to build off of. But Gallaudet again, what should we be looking for?
Well, they're triple. That's their mainstay, triple and midline, and that's what they're going to run. And they've got their quarterback, Tamel Benton, back. They've got the big fullback back, and they've got Randall and Cashmeyer back, the two wings that they have. So you're looking at phenomenal athletes. I talk about the quarterback, and I try to get our kids to understand, hey, that kid is a Division I athlete, period. And if we don't keep him under wraps, like we're going to have a long night. So, I look at that, and they have some returners up front. Cress Fisher, who's actually a local kid here, the center, he's a big-bodied kid, and he's physical up front, and he's experienced because he's a junior. And they've got some, I think, another junior and a senior on the offensive line returning as well. Defensively, they've got some experience up front, and at the line, they're very athletic at the linebacker spot. They play quarters and play downhill. They play a physical brand of football. So we're in for a physical game tonight. I'm looking to see, again, kind of like last year, how our kids respond in the face of adversity, what our mental focus is, how our mental toughness is, and what's our makeup. And I think we're going to get to find that out tonight.
And we'll carry some of this discussion over after the break. But Bernie, you didn't see Gallaudet last year. Triple option attack in week 1 again.
That's something you don't see every week, so preparing for it is something different that most defensive coaches don't have to do. The real curveball would be if they came out and didn't run it, and you're not prepared for it. So you've got to be prepared to see triple option. You may have to be prepared to see veer. You've got to look for RPOs. You got to wait for, if they go midline or want to, smash mouth up the middle. You've got to be ready for all sorts of different things, and then hope that they come out with what your main game plan is for.
And we'll talk more about the 2019-20 schedule and tonight's game on the other side. This is the Alvernia Football Coaches Show with head coach Ralph Clark on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network.
Okay, good job. Perfect. 12:02, Bobby, back at the station. We'll have Ken for the final segment, all right, of the opening hour. One segment to go.
Yeah. Is everybody going to eat? Class or something? I don't know. I don't have that many people with class.
So I didn't really, we ran out a little bit of time.
If I would have had a class at this time, I wouldn't have been there.
Do you want Matt to come on?
Yeah, shit.
Or do we want to maybe do any final thoughts on the rest of the schedule with you and then bring him in or something?
And the schedule?
Like that?
That's fine. I don't care. And then we got player, and then in the next hour we got players. The next hour? Cool.
Yeah, guys, all the player interviews are going to be in the next hour, okay? So try and hang if you can, please.
So So this hour's Aaron, and then we're gonna cut up all the player interviews, and at halftime you'll be able to learn more about some of the guys.
All right, Matt, let's go.
Tricky.
I'm with you.
What are we doing?
So Coach is gonna stay on, quickly wrap final thoughts, and then we're gonna bring in final words from Matt Chappelle, the offensive coordinator.
All right, so he can stand here.
I'll just hand this over.
Yes, Honey running York. Honey running York down in town.
Let's send it out. We'll send it out on golf. So bring that up. Bring that up as we're sending Coach off.
Within some point, we'll get a call and tell him.
2, 1. Okay. Coach, you can throw that headset on if you will.
I don't think it'll be this Sunday. I got to see my kid play.
I'm with you.
Should we go all the way till the end with Matt, leading up to the pregame show? That's fine, right?
Okay, you're going to be out in this segment. You're going to be out in 10, so
Okay.
we've got 10 minutes. All right, so you're bringing us back. You're going to transition. My suggestion would be you, Bernie, coach, 3 minutes, transition to the coach.
Right.
All right? All right, you'll bring us back, Matt. We will not look for any crowd interaction. We lost half our crowd, all right?
Food, yes, Boyle, food.
All right, Coach, you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, everybody should hear. Coach, you can hear me in the headset, right?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Matt, you're bringing us back. Let's go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Back on the Alvernia Football Coaches Show with head coach Ralph Clark on Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network. Matt Murphy and Philadelphia Soul defensive backs and special teams coach Bernie Nowotarski here with you. We've still got Coach Ralph Clark with us leading up to tonight's game. Coach, just want to put a bow. We said we put a bow on last season. Now let's put a bow on kind of this season's schedule. If there's any other thoughts you have on this Gallaudet matchup, we talked about the quarterback. We talked about the emotions from last year's win and all of that. And what are you looking for in tonight's game, or what do you hope to get out of tonight's game, being as it's the first game on the schedule, other than a win, obviously?
I was going to say a win.
A win.
Yeah,
right,
a win.
There you go.
I don't really care how it comes. We just want to win. And again, I think that goes to the makeup of our team. So I want to see what we're made of, what our focus is, what our execution is like, and from that we'll see what we need to clean up, what we need to work on, what we're good at, what we're not so good at, and we'll find the identity of our team tonight. And if you're asking me about the season, I'm assuming that's what you're alluding to. Is
right.
I can't tell you our schedule off the top of my head. I know game 1 and game 2, and I'm kind of foggy after that. But next week we've got was it UNE coming up?
Yep,
at our place.
In front of a great crowd.
In front of a great crowd, and I'm hoping it's about 100 degrees.
I was just going to add, I hope it's about 100. I hope for your sake that the players are hydrated.
Yeah.
But if it is 100, with what they did to him and I last year, I'd love for them to be on top of the press box and not inside it.
I might be able to lock that up and make that happen, but I'm just saying. But I'm looking for improvement. Call it what you want. And Coach Licton up there, he did a great job and got his kids prepared, and they were resilient and came back. But obviously, we feel like that's a game we should have won. And you take out the first 5 minutes of the second half, and I think we pretty much dominated that game from start to finish, other than those 5 minutes. So I'm looking for us to pick up kind of not where we left off, but kind of have a bad taste in our mouth and look for improvement all the way around.
Well, Coach, we'll let you get to it in just a second. I know Bernie did some research on golf.
Absolutely.
So we can get out before we let you go.
Well, we're looking at maybe Downingtown Country Club or Honey Dew or Honey Creek in York. Those are 2 of my owner's golf courses, Ron Jaworski, and during the Soul season, one of our perks is we get to play his golf courses for free all year, and every Thursday was our day out after special teams, and it was nice to hit the golf balls around all season.
There you go. There you have it.
We practice in the morning, so just understand that you make it Thursday after. Thursday after about 10 a.m. I'm good.
We would go out around 12 or 1, and I have officially moved.
Said that out loud.
I've officially moved up to the senior tees, by the way.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to hit from the whites. That's okay. I'm going to hit from the whites. I'm going to stay away from the blues and the blacks.
Yes,
good.
Yes, sir.
Well, we'll have to let everybody know how that goes, but right now it's all about football. Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's Alvernia head football coach Ralph Clark, and we are going to have the Alvernia offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Matt Chappelli jump on with us, Bernie, and talk a little bit about the offense heading into tonight's game. Coach Chappelli, back for year 2 of the program. Thanks for joining us. And what are you looking forward to about this season now that the inaugural season is behind you and the rest of the staff?
Looking forward to the brand of football we're going to play offensively. We're going to be up-tempo, fast-paced, and hopefully it's a fun show on turf for people to watch.
And Bernie, Matt was the passing game coordinator last year and play caller as well. This year, the offensive coordinator and the quarterbacks coach. And what did you see from last year's offense? And maybe Matt can jump in with how things might look a little bit different without giving too much away.
Well, like I said, the running game was solid. Again, with a young line, it was still solid. I know you wanted to have more out of the passing game. It was tough to get downfield. So if you're not stretching some defenses out and they get a chance to stay in the box, it makes things a little more difficult. For me, there were times I would have liked to seen maybe a tight end out or a tight end down the seam, but situations don't always dictate that. When you have a bad special teams play and all of a sudden you're back in your own end, there's certain your playbook shrinks. If you have a holding on first down and now it's first and 15 or first and 25, or your playbook changes. So it's not as easy to say, all right, let's send a tight end down the seam or let's get a screen. It gets difficult. I think if the passing game can get a little bit more of stretching the field and getting people in holes and windows, again, that running game is solid. It'll be once you can mix those both together, that's when it works.
And Coach, if you want to respond to that, go ahead. But
yeah, I know Coach forgot to mention them, but our tight end, Owen Morton, and one of the guys we got in the spring, Nick Roshak, they've done a great job in the offseason and coming into camp being leaders. And, I'm excited to get those guys on the field. So you might see a little bit of 12 personnel once in a while.
And they're big kids.
Oh, yeah.
So there was not only transition or development with the players, but there was also transition on the coaching staff as well. Obviously, you're coming back, but what was that process like with some new faces coming into the coaching staff this offseason?
It was a smooth transition. Offensively, we got 2 new coaches in at the O-line and wide receiver spots, which has been a big help. Those guys do a great job coaching up their position groups and holding those guys accountable. Our special teams coordinator, running backs, and tight ends coach Jomp is back, and he's got all groups moving in the right direction. And then defensively, those guys that came in, they fit in, and it's been very seamless.
And I talked about it a lot on this show so far, the atmosphere, especially at that Gallaudet game to kick off last season, on the road against them this year. But with home games coming back to Reading for the second year of the program, how exciting is that? And what did you make of the crowd that you guys had out to support you last year?
It's extremely exciting. Week 1 last year was a crazy scene. People 3 deep at the top of the bleachers high-fiving you in the booth was something I'd never seen before. So I'm excited to see it again in year 2 and hopefully a little bit more.
Bernie, what are you expecting in terms of, or what are your thoughts on the coaching staff kind of transition of sorts with some new faces in different areas?
Like Coach said, if it was an easy transition, I'm willing to bet he tells his quarterbacks exactly what we tell ours. Take what the defense gives you and play pitch and catch. You see them open, play pitch and catch. That's it. Read the defense, go where they're not, and then the run plays, somebody block, somebody run, and we always say it. This is really a simple game. It really is when it comes down. I think as coaches sometimes we probably confuse it with all our verbiage and language and sets and everything, but it really comes down to a very simple game. Hand the ball off, run, block, tackle. If you're a quarterback, find the open person, go where the defense is and throw it to the receiver, catch the ball, get yards, go down. I mean, it's a simple game when you break it down that way. So I'm sure that's what coaches told his quarterbacks going into the season. Take what the defense gives you, play pitch and catch with your receivers, running backs, protect the ball, get up into the holes, linemen, create holes.
Well, let's kind of end how we started with the word development, coach. And I know you mentioned a couple guys on the offense by name at the tight end position, but overall, maybe even on the defense, if you have any thoughts there. But specifically offensive, if that's where you want to lean, what did you see in terms of development this offseason from the offensive players, year 1 to year 2?
A lot of the guys came back stronger. Another one that I just forgot to mention that he's sitting right in the front row, Antoine Cade. A lot of people probably don't know much about him. He did a great job getting himself prepared this offseason and really filling in the need at the slot receiver position and kind of taking the young guys under his wing and being, an unspoken leader. Outside of that, we've got a lot of young guys up front, so it'll be fun to see them. But the guys that were here last year that might not have had a lot of snaps have done a great job getting the freshmen mentally prepared for what this season's going to be.
Well, Coach, thanks for giving us some time, and good luck tonight and this season. That's Alvernia offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Matt Chappelli. And coming up next is our pregame show. This is Sports Radio 1240 across the Jacob Media Sports Radio Network. Alvernia football coming up.
Okay, good, clear. Coach, nice job. Okay, kill that. Coach done, good job, nice job. Byrne, great job.
Thanks.
All right, Matt, let's get the, how do you want to do the players? How do you want to do it?
Does it have to? What's our?
There's no structure. There's no structure.
Our total content time that what we need to get, like 40 minutes, and all the way up to 6 o'clock. Or are we spacing it out?
Well, I'm getting as many players as you get that are going to do 2 to 3 minute hits.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So as many players as you got that we can get to know. I want to get to coach this reference. You may not know a lot about the kid. I want to. Yeah. So. Let me just talk, Bobby, just real quick. That concludes the show for the pregame. We're open mic for the next probably 45 minutes. All right, so we'll be ready to go here in about 4 minutes. If you're listening, I'll look to start right around the top of the hour. Thank you, brother.
Got to put New England up on top of the box.
All right, who's going up? What guys are being interviewed?
Guys,
Everybody in the room?
it's all easy. It's not X's and O's stuff. It's like fun questions. It's like Twitter or Instagram,
Yes.
that type of thing.
Yes.
It's going to be on at halftime.
Who's up? Everybody? Good.
Strong.
It's going to.
All right, Bernie, you're good? You're done?
Tie.
So it's not in depth.
You're done?
It's like rapid
You're out?
fire, like one or the other. And
For the day?
at halftime, it's over.
Yeah, we're just doing now, we're doing get to know your player segments so that we're going to run during the halftime of the games.
All right.
Tell Kevin to get here.
Everything that
Owen.
we're good with what.
Where's
Yeah,
Owen?
we just have to figure that out,
Just
yeah.
makes it-
Yeah,
Makes it a ton of a lot easier for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And Jordan.
Oh, what are you doing? Are you going to go down tomorrow or something like that?
I'm going to let him know by tonight.
Okay, well, let me know so I can figure out the hotel.
All right.
Okay?
I go.
I mean, we can connect later. Just let me know and then I'll figure out the hotel.
I got to make
Come on,
a
Mr.
call to my
Katie.
wife she's living and working right now in North Carolina.
Don't be scared now.
Our daughter just evacuated from Charleston because she's in Charleston.
Hey, bro. Hey, look.
All right, Matt, let's go. We got to be tight, all right? Just get everybody up there. No, get the line your players up.
Yeah.
We lost our grandson yesterday. After 13 days, he couldn't fight anymore. He was born at 24 weeks. He was like this big.
Where's
Dealing with that
CJ?
a little bit.
Somebody hit CJ.
I'll let him know tonight. If not, I'll drive down.
Well,
So once
you decide, let me know if it's
Yeah, I'll know
up, so I can take care of the hotel.
I'll know tonight.
So once we get these players,
That's fine.
as soon as we finish, we're done.
We're done. Yeah. Yeah, and you can put one player.
Player profiles, you want it? Alvernia
CJ?
football player profiles?
Text CJ something.
And you're not going to hear much of
What do you want, like, the intro to be? Just like,
Oh, I gotta turn my
because I'm gonna bring it back live for halftime and then send it to a player profile. So it's like Matt Murphy joined by.
Yeah, we're going to go down to all season
Right.
long. All season long, we're going to bring you into the lives of the players or something like that. Get to know these players that make up the Golden
Right.
Knights. Here's my conversation with. But you can put one on each back. You can put one on each side, and I can put a player here.
Okay.
If you want. And you can bounce or you want to do one individual.
I want to do individual.
Okay,
Yeah,
so first player up.
Let's go.
It's easy. It's easy.
Coach, nice job.
Thanks.
What's so long?
Stop it, man. Stop it.
Matt Murphy.
Have a seat right here. We're going to do one at a time. Yeah.
So if you're next, you can say right in the hole. 1, 2, 1, 2.
And it's all rapid fire. Did you call somebody else?
1, 2. Let me kill Coach's mic. 1, 2.
How much advice does he need? He has a 4.0.
1, 2, 1, 2. Matt, I'm going to let me know when you're ready. And we're just going to do these rapid fire, okay? Who's up next? Where's our next player? Okay, you're going to jump right in next, all right? As soon as we're done up on set, all right? Remember, you're doing the lead into this live, so you don't necessarily
Right,
need...
so I can just say my name and who I'm joined by, basically.
Yeah, I'm joined by... Yeah,
Right.
This is Matt Murphy, I'm joined by.
Yeah.
Because you're leading into it live, all
Right.
right? Let me know when you're ready, and I'll get us started on our first one. Hang on 1 second. Bobby, start time on the clock is 4:55. 4:55. All right, ready to go, Matt? Yep, you're good. Absolutely.
Matt